wouldn't let me through the border into Croatia.
Yeah, they're not happy about all these solar panels. There's 9 of them not happy about these batteries.
Didn't sleep as well as I wanted to. I was a little bit cold at times.
Well, despite my best attempts at trying to get this sorted.
What do you want to hear, Louis? The good news or the bad news first?
Tell me the bad news.
The bad news is, I'm trying to think how to word this. Okay, the bad news is...
I wasn't planning on making this vlog, but what's unfolded since my last video is so ridiculous, stressful, and unbelievable, I had to share it with you. So, here's the story. For those that don't know, I have just completed a mostly solar-powered moped trip across Europe, all the way from Italy to Bulgaria, 1,000 miles. Following this, I needed to get my support vehicle, my Tesla, 2,000 miles back home to the UK. My dad kindly offered to do the drive all the way back, which was incredibly generous. We had the car documents now and even took a photo showing permission for him to drive it. After all the issues that we had on the way there, we didn't want any more hassle at the borders. At this point, I was thousands of miles away, back home in the UK, awaiting the imminent birth of my daughter. But what should have been a simple drive back for my dad turned into one of the most stressful remote rescues I've ever had to coordinate.
Taking the Tesla back to Louis in Hove. That's the mission. It's going to take about 5-6 days. Queues. Came up to the Bulgarian border. Well, I'm through the border, which is great, but had to pay 35 euros for road tax on the Bulgarian side. My side, Serbia, road totally clear.
Just doing third charge of the day.
So my dad was nearing the end of his first day of driving and entering back into Croatia. We'd previously had customs issues when we crossed from Croatia into Serbia, but they kindly let us transit through, even though the first time we'd forgotten the paperwork. However, this time, the Croatian border control immediately started questioning my dad on why he had so many batteries and solar panels in the car, and they decided to deem it commercial cargo, and they wanted potentially thousands in import fees. After my dad desperately tried to negotiate with the border control and explain the situation, they were still asking for the value of the goods and wanted invoices for proof. On top of this, my dad was struggling to get hold of me as his phone didn't have any service or data in Serbia, so he had to buy a local SIM card from a kiosk at the border just to message me. I received this panicked message from my dad and scrambled to send over what I had, but the border agents were very impatient and not waiting around, shouting at my dad and being incredibly aggressive.
Yeah, they're not happy about all these solar panels. There's 9 of them not happy about these batteries. They want everything.
They were demanding thousands of euros for import tax and fines for trying to come into the EU. Now, obviously, my dad was just passing through the EU on the way home. We weren't importing anything. This was all personal gear we had bought from the UK, clearly used, visibly dusty, but they weren't having any of it. So after 2 hours of being interrogated and being sent back and forth across the border 3 times trying to get things sorted, he was refused entry and sent back into Serbia. So I then suggested plan B should be that he drive up and around to another border entry 30 minutes away and try again and hope that they would be more lenient. So that's what he did.
A lot of shenanigans. Wouldn't let me through the border into Croatia, into the European Union from Serbia. So I am going back here into Serbia to see if I can get some more paperwork sorted and hopefully get back. We'll see. Louis is heading me up to the other border. Miles and miles of lorries.
There, they took his passport from him and were waiting for me to send more documents to prove I purchased the goods in the UK. My dad printed some documents at the border and again tried to explain everything in the car was personal items. I was WhatsApping him things to say, sending him through invoices, but they were still being incredibly difficult and wouldn't allow him to enter. At this point, I felt really bad for my dad. He's under so much stress and there wasn't anything more I could do to help. I had knots in my stomach from the anxiety and felt so terrible that he was stuck in this situation. I wasn't sure whether they would confiscate the gear, impound the car, or even detain my dad, and it was so hard not being there to help him figure out a plan. So, after even more interrogation, they turned him back into Serbia. He now had 6 stamps back and forth across the border. So it was getting really late, and the only option I could think of for plan C was to drive up and through another country, hoping their border control would be more chill. However, at this point, the car was critically low on battery, and the nearest supercharger was the other side of the Croatian border, which obviously he couldn't reach. So while we made a new plan, we at least needed some kind of charger for the car. I luckily found one 20 minutes back into Serbia and directed my dad there. Okay, so it's getting late now, 11:30 p.m. My dad was exhausted. He'd been driving all day and was mentally fatigued. He found the charger, but the next challenge was trying to get the charger to work. Firstly, the QR code for payment was worn off, so that didn't work. Then there was this obscure Serbian charging app. 2 of my dad's bank cards didn't work with that. And after almost an hour of trying, I finally managed to activate the charger all the way from the UK. So with the car charging slowly, but still no real plan of where to go from there, my dad tried his best to get some sleep in the car. And that's when things got even worse. At almost 2 a.m, he saw the main battery, said it was almost charged, but suddenly error codes lit up the Tesla's display. Unable to start vehicle, service is required, power reduced, vehicle system shutting down, electrical system power reduced, vehicle may shut down unexpectedly. So on top of everything that had happened, it was like the worst case scenario. When electric cars break down like that, there's rarely anything you can do to fix it without taking it somewhere. After receiving these messages from my dad, I frantically looked online for help and was devastated to learn that Serbia is literally one of the only countries in Europe with no Tesla service center. So now we had a brick Tesla that wouldn't start at all, stuck at a random remote charger in a country where no one could help, and I was trying to fix it from 2,000 miles away. I was desperately doing research online to help self-diagnose what it could be. I was sending all sorts of instructions to my dad for soft reboots, hard reboots, high voltage wake-ups, anything I could find. Finally, I thought the only thing we could do was try and replace the 12-volt battery. But by this time, it was super late and my dad had to sleep. Next morning, my dad woke up after a terrible night's sleep and swollen feet from sleeping upright. But he managed to focus on our new mission, and together we went into full problem-solving mode.
Bit of a drama, didn't sleep very well. Woke up about 5. You can see I've emptied the front, and it may be that there's a battery in here that's being cooked, and we need to get hold of the Tesla folks or have a go ourselves because we can do the right battery.
After looking locally and asking around, my dad was told there were no taxis in the area to take him anywhere to find a battery. So we had no idea what to do.
Thankfully, we've got possibly somebody who's able to help us. The only other person that's just turned up is a blue car. In that car is a Serbian guy called Daniel.
At this point, a super friendly guy called Daniel happened to pull up at the charger next to my dad. Luckily, he spoke English and he offered to give him a lift to the airport in Belgrade, halfway back across the country. And he was told from there he could catch a taxi to go and find a battery. So he locked up the Tesla and jumped in with these random guys. At the Belgrade airport, he was able to get a second Serbian SIM card because he'd run out of data on the first one. And he caught a taxi to go on a mission for a replacement 12-volt Tesla battery.
Getting a lift in the taxi to get a battery, taking it into the city in Belgrade.
After going to 3 different places, it was now 7 p.m. with only one place left to try. And miraculously, they had the right battery, or so we thought. So my dad managed to get a taxi all the way back from Belgrade, and by the time he was back at the car, it was the end of the day, it was getting dark, so mission battery replacement was going to have to wait until the morning.
That was a long drive, we had a long day, but our taximan been very helpful, taking me to the different places to get batteries that were right for the Tesla, and we have it there. Now we have the mission, the task of getting this thing actually working. So I have the battery. I think with the light, this will be a job for tomorrow.
It was now the second night of discomfort, sleeping in the car, stuck parked at the charger, living at a service station. Right, I want to give a quick shout out to UBG for sponsoring this video. If you're someone who's often on the move like we are, or you've got a trip coming up, This is one of those apps that just makes life easier. It's an eSIM app that gives you instant data in over 200 destinations without any of the usual hassle. We've used it loads recently. No messing with SIM cards, no signing up for sketchy airport Wi-Fi, and no getting kicked off after an hour. You just land, and once your eSIM is on and selected as your source of data, you're connected. What I really like is that you can top up even if you've run out of data and don't have Wi-Fi. So in a worst case moment, you've still got a way to get online. You can also share your connection with other devices or friends without any restriction, and the coverage has been pretty strong. UBG partners with several local networks in a lot of countries, which helps avoid black spots. So grab the UBG app, set it up before your trip, and if you want 10% off, use the code FunForLouis. The link is in the description. Right, let's get back to the video.
This morning, I'm going to look at the new battery into the Tesla. So I've got to strip out all this front stuff, get all the batteries out, leads out, the front cacks and filters. So right under the inside, under the fuse box, is the main battery that feeds the whole system. Everything out the front of the Tesla, and then we've got to take all these 10mm ones, there's probably about 20 of them. So I'm going to use this to undo all these. This apparently is called the frunk. I think that's just going to lift out. Huge there. So that is Sunset Filter.
So the next morning, hopes were high. But after undoing an unnecessary number of bolts and removing the Tesla's front tub to access the 12-volt battery, it dawned on my dad that after all of that, the battery was the wrong size.
Oh, here's the battery. Oh, that's a bit different size than the one I bought. So, oh my goodness, that is a different size. This is different to that video that I was showing. We've hit a little hitch problem in that the size of the battery that it was agreed that I should get is a bit too big. This is not going to fit in that little tray. I think we've got an issue in that this is so much bigger.
He did eventually manage to unclip the cables and unconventionally attach the new battery with it balanced on the frame. But when he tried to start the car, it still wasn't working.
I put it in, but electrically things are probably dead. Got nothing unscrewing. Nothing.
The car was throwing up a million error messages, and we realised that the problem wasn't the 12-volt battery at all. The only option now was to get the car to a Tesla service centre. I started looking at neighbouring countries and found the nearest one was 3.5 hours away in Romania. So I called them and asked for some advice. And amazingly, they said they could access the car remotely and do a diagnostic check to get more info. It was at this point my heart sank as they dropped the bombshell that they could see the main high voltage battery was faulty and the only solution was to replace it. I was absolutely gutted because the high voltage battery is the main value of the vehicle, and the Model X battery replacement from Tesla would cost around £20,000, almost $30,000. My only thought was it was probably damaged by that dodgy third-party charger that my dad had been using, and it caused the Tesla to enter like a full safety lockout. So as all that was still sinking in, I was now having to figure out how to get a bricked Tesla to Romania.
Well, despite my best attempts at trying to get this sorted, we do have an issue. What we are looking at is high voltage error, which we think is being caused by this charger, not quite sure. Next challenge, getting this towed to Romania. I'm going to get all these bits back in.
After calling around, I managed to speak to Tesla's head of operations in Romania, and they confirmed they could help us if we could get the car across the border, but that was down to us to figure out. So we started calling around. My dad spoke to people at the service station. I called a few places, and every single tow company in Serbia we spoke to said it was impossible for them to cross into the EU. The best thing we could find was to be taken to the border for €600, but they wouldn't cross, so that was useless.
Well, the good news is that Louis' been on the phone to Tesla. They've been suggesting what to do. And in fact, they can only sort this out in Romania. So we've got to try and get this to Romania. Serbians are saying they will take it to the border, but not through. Let's just have a look at what we can do moving this forward.
Eventually, I found one Romanian driver willing to come across, load up the car and take it back to the Tesla service centre in Timișoara. It was a gamble though, because this was just some random guy I found on Google and I just WhatsApped him. And before he left, he asked for 300 euros up front. I reluctantly transferred that money to him online and then didn't hear from him for hours. And at this point, I realised I'd probably been scammed. And on top of everything else, it was just too much.
Louis organising a pickup truck from Romania to come over the border here to Serbia. It will pick me up in a few hours' time, and then this will be taken on the tow truck. I'll travel with them to the border, get to Romania. That is the plan, so I'm just tidying up.
But miraculously, hours later, after no communication, he suddenly showed up to where my dad was and got prepped to load up the Tesla. What a relief. But before it could be towed, my dad had to figure out how to get the car into transport mode. It was locked in park, and that can cause permanent motor damage if it's towed in that mode. He figured it out though, got the car loaded, cleverly tried to hide some of the gear inside, and climbed into the truck to ride to Romania with the driver.
So we're having the Tesla picked up because it's broken down. This guy's come all the way from Romania to help us out, and hopefully we'll be over the border tonight. We hopefully are going to get all hit shut and sorted.
Obviously, my dad was super nervous again trying to cross into the EU. I was on the edge of my seat back in the UK, praying the border crossing would go smoothly. And this time it did. Customs apparently looked inside and didn't seem to care about the gear and waved them through. This was a huge milestone of the mission complete, but it was kind of overshadowed by the Tesla potentially being a write-off. So for 600 euros and after days of being stranded, we had rescued the Tesla and got it dropped at the Tesla service centre.
The kind driver here has booked me a room at the hotel, so I've got somewhere to sleep because it's very late and it's just 200 meters from where we're going to drop the vehicle off to. So we've arrived at Tesla. Third attempt at crossing the EU border. It was much more pleasant.
There was no way my dad was going to spend a third night suffering in the car. So around 1 a.m, he checked into a hotel nearby.
This is great. This is exactly what I need. So I've just walked down the road, gonna go into reception and see what they say.
The next morning, he headed back to the Tesla centre and they ran diagnostics and confirmed the high voltage battery was fried. My main mission now was to get my dad home. It was a relief to know the car was finally in Tesla's hands, but I still had no idea what to do with the car or how we'd eventually get it back to the UK. So I booked my dad a flight home the following day. Okay, so this is where the constant problems after problems ended, and they told my dad absolutely amazing news.
What do you want to hear, Louis? The good news or the bad news first?
Tell me the bad news.
The bad news is, I'm trying to think how to word this. Okay, the bad news is, I don't know if there's any bad news. So all the thing is going to be under warranty. They're going to replace the whole lot.
Oh, God, you had me. Oh. They confirmed it was all completely covered under warranty. They were replacing the full battery pack at no charge. Oh, what an absolute relief. The replacement was going to take a couple of weeks, but the car would be as good as new. We were celebrating at the news. My dad was also excited because whilst he waited for his flight the next day, they gave him a brand new Model 3 Performance to test drive and do some sightseeing around the city. He saw some cool buildings, had some good food, met some friendly locals, and finally had a chance to rest and recover after a wild few days. I was absolutely exhausted from trying to coordinate this from afar, sitting at home, so I can't even imagine what my dad was feeling. He handled it like an absolute legend. Honestly, I owe him so much and I'm so grateful he went above and beyond to help me. And also a huge thanks to the Tesla team in Romania, absolute heroes. But the story isn't over, so fast forward a few weeks, the car was fixed and I now needed to figure out getting it back to the UK. I couldn't fly out as Raya was due to give birth that week. Tesla said they couldn't organise shipping, and from some quick research, it would cost thousands to ship it home. Then, to my surprise, my dad offered to come to the rescue again and fly back out and drive it home. I honestly thought he'd be done after his experience, but apparently not. So he flew back out to pick it up. When he went to collect it, they didn't have the key. He remembered giving them the key, but they said they never received it.
So we have a slight problem in that they can't find the main key, so we're just sorting it out as where the main key has gotten to, because I handed it to the guys. We have found the key. I'd left it in the Model Y that I test driven, and the guys went looking for it and have found Louis' key in the car, so I can drive it back to the UK now.
So one last mission before his drive home was to replace the 2 front tyres. The service centre said they couldn't do this for some reason, so my dad took it down the road and got them sorted.
I'm not quite sure if this is the right place. Is it through here?
So the car's been done, just paid at the office. Great job done. Thank you, sir, for doing that. You're really great. We're going to hit the road now, back to the UK.
From there, my dad absolutely crushed the drive home. He drove all the way from Romania to the UK in just 2 days. He made the ferry, avoided any more border drama coming back into the UK, and got back just in time to meet his new granddaughter.
What a mammoth drive you just did. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Honestly, this whole saga was one of the most stressful, unexpected adventures I've ever been a part of. So wild. And the best thing is, I now have a brand new battery pack, which has noticeably increased my Tesla's range. It feels like I can drive like 20% further on a charge, which is epic. So there it is. If you've enjoyed this storytime vlog and want me and my dad to do some more adventures together, make sure you subscribe and suggest some adventure ideas in the comments. See you in the next video.